Hey guys, Dr. D here with AlphaOmegaWellness.com. I recently got to sit down and chat with a patient of mine named Kerri. And Kerri's story briefly, she came to me last year and she was struggling with something called fluoroquinolone toxicity. So that's a class of antibiotics that gets prescribed sometimes for respiratory illnesses, sometimes for urinary tract infections. And a small subset of people will actually develop pretty significant symptoms from this. And a lot of doctors think that it doesn't happen, but it clearly does. And so when Kerri first came to me, she was having multiple symptoms, bladder pain, some mental health issues like depression. She was frustrated. She was sad. She was dealing with ringing in her ears. And this is a great example for you of how a functional medicine approach can be transformative in a person's life, because she was going through to several more conventional physicians and was told, well, this doesn't happen, or this almost never happens, so like it probably didn't happen to you. Was told that she should probably see a psychiatrist because maybe it was just psychiatric in nature. And so she came to me frustrated. And so in this interview, she just shares her story about how we walked alongside of her. We started implementing the right changes in the right order to get her where she is today. Hey guys, Dr. D here with AlphaOmegaWellness.com, and I'm here with my friend and patient Kerri Pinger, and she's just going to share with us today a little bit of her story of her own health journey and kind of where you found yourself like a year ago.
Came to you, actually, I guess my journey started in December of last year, right after the holidays.
Yeah, so December 2021, right?
It was,
yeah.
Yes. I'm excited. This is the new year. I'm hoping that this is definitely,
2023 is
we're ready for the
year.
last one behind me. And it started with, I think it was a culmination of, like I said, the perfect storm of things both mentally, physiologically, and physically that were going on, some personal things in my life that were going on that I'm super, okay to share.
Right.
I was losing one of the people in my life that I was the most close to, the person that knew me the best, and after a long battle, she had colon cancer and realized we were reaching the tail end at that time, and the holidays, and I know a lot, myself and a lot of women and men, put a lot of pressure on themselves over the holidays, and I just happened to get what I thought was a UTI at first, and I've had a few of those in my life.
Sure.
Not chronic, but a few, something kind of in between, and I woke up right after Christmas, and it was, I was in severe pain, a different kind of pain, and it also came with some fever and some really cold clamminess, and my family took me to the, at that time, because it was the holidays, a med check.
Sure.
Because that was all that was open at the time. And it kind of started me down a path of not very connected and consistent health.
Yeah. So we just say you were getting episodic care.
I was getting episodic care is a great term.
Yeah.
So, I went in and they put me on my first antibiotic, and it was obvious that was not working. So I called my regular primary care physician, and I do have insurance. But I think the system failed me at that point. I'm in pain. I can barely move. I feel the worst I've ever felt in my life, and we can get you in 6 weeks, was the reply.
Right.
And that's not good when you're in pain.
Right. Or you could go to the ER.
Well, and so that's what I did 3 times after that. I was in severe pain, thought it was going into my kidneys, and they, it's a long cycle, but they put me on 2 antibiotics, and the ER finally reached out and said, this is obviously really bad, and of course, there's no real pain management at an ER either, which I really didn't want that anyway, but they put me on something called a fluoroquinolone drug.
Yeah.
It is a classification of antibiotics that have a black label that I did not read, nor could I, even with my glasses on.
Right.
And I unfortunately had a very negative reaction to those. It was a drug called moxifloxacin and then a drug called Levaquin. So I actually knew it was a bad reaction, but getting the healthcare system to believe that was a process, and your insurance pushes you down a course that is very regimented and regulated.
Right.
And it wasn't healing was not happening fast enough. But the minute I took the first fluoroquinolone drug, I had a terrible feeling come up my spine and over the top of my head, and my ears started ringing. I had tinnitus so loud that I thought I was going to go deaf.
Wow.
Yeah, muscle twitching that was borderline jerking, peripheral neuropathy. And for anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's really bad tingling and burning in the extremities. Severe anxiety, and I'll be very frank and honest that I always suffer from a little anxiety.
Yeah.
But
this wasn't like that.
This was that
on steroids.
This was the first time in my life. I've had challenging times in my life, and I've, as everyone has, and I've risen up through the ashes several times, but I wasn't this time.
Right.
I physically couldn't do it. It was the first time in my life that I physically just could not do it. So I felt like I was losing control of my body, and that there was nothing I could do. And then between the trying different drugs and supplements, I just felt like I just wanted to give up, and that it was over.
So what started happening after we started taking care of you, and do you remember what changes we recommended?
I do. So at first I thought there was a moment of hesitation when you said, I definitely think we need to address your gut, because I had heard so much about that, gut brain, gut lung, gut everything axis.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm a reader of true research.
Oh, I know you are.
I don't read all that crap out there. And that also was literally driving me crazy through the process. And I don't recommend that anyone really doing that. That was why I appreciated you so much for summing that up for me. But I thought, oh no, here we go with the gut health. This can't be, in my gut. And my gut ended up playing a huge role with that. But I do think you treated me much like someone in the beginning. It was hard to tell the forest for the trees, for you, for me, for both of us. So we started at Go and did a detox. Yeah. And you immediately put me on the anti-inflammatory diet. And one good thing about me as a patient is I listen and I do.
When you were so desperate to get well.
I was desperate, absolutely desperate. And at my lowest rock bottom in life, because I just couldn't pick myself up every day. And that's, I have a lot resting on my shoulders. That just can't happen, Right. And so we did start with a detox, and you had me on that anti-inflammatory diet, which I paid very close attention to. I think in maybe a month or two, the first 2 months, I might have had a little cheat, maybe not once or twice. So. No, very little, very little, because it was working with my pain. Right. And I was at that point, like if I had cut my finger cooking or something, it would get infected. I don't know if you remember that. Or I would nick, or I'd bruise really bad. Like it was just like my body was beat down. And it turns out that whole no bacteria, those drugs had stripped me of all my good bacteria. And I had no idea what happens when what the consequences are for that. But it goes from here to here. Yeah. Like it was head to toe, no bacteria is a very, very bad thing. Or being, even I got off.
Dysbiosis, So, I mean, it's crazy that what happens in the gut literally affects things that leak out of the gut into the bloodstream. Maybe our listeners have heard of leaky gut or increased intestinal permeability, we call it. And if you have a leaky gut, you have a leaky brain. Like there's so much connection between the two. And so you can have overgrowth of bacteria in the gut that tend to lead to more inflammation in the body, right? And so really the root issue that you had going on was this abnormal inflammatory response.
Absolutely, that I couldn't control.
Right. Yeah. And that's what happens when people have this chronic immune response syndrome. And so, or chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And so what happens is now it's not the original insult that's the issue, it's the body's ongoing inflammation that's not shutting down. And that can affect every organ system. And that's why you can have such strange symptoms that are all over the place. The conventional medicine is like, well, I don't know, the heart's fine, and well, I don't know, the lung's fine, well, I don't know, the endocrine system seems fine, and yet nothing is fine. Yes. Right? You're still having symptoms. And so that's why you had the neurologic symptoms and the vibration issues and the
Skin.
the tinnitus and
tinnitus,
the
lost my
skin
hair.
issues,
Yeah,
right?
all of it.
And so all of that, because the root is similar to patients with mold, similar to patients with chronic Lyme, it's an inflammatory response. And so if we can just start settling that down,
that was the edge.
The body
that was the edge.
wants to heal.
Yeah, I did
God
not,
designed us to be healthy.
I actually have been in the end of this, the tail end. I'm able to see the forest for the trees. And while I'm not 100% positive what caused all of that,
right,
except for that, massive crap storm of the perfect
right,
circumstances.
Right.
So everything was going on and it was
right,
just a tough time physically and mentally. I've learned, I had to put that behind me, but I can say that anti-inflammatory diet it gave me the edge to gain back a little of my control.
Right.
And even just this much control can help you through some really tough times. So I think that was the first step. And then we started treating my gut, which was good. And then, we did things one at a time because it was just so much going on. So
if there's somebody out there who's struggling with, maybe it's not even from a fluoroquinolone, but if there's somebody out there that's struggling with some bizarre symptoms that kind of conventional medicine, looking at everything in a silo and not finding an answer, if there's somebody out there who's dealing with that right now, what advice would you give them?
Start it go.
And what's go?
Go is getting in with you and start weeding. I mean, you got to dive into the weeds, and there wasn't, like I said in the very beginning, even when you preached the importance of gut health, and this was more than all that, but that was a huge part of it. There were parts I just had to put my trust in you and say, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do what you tell me, and not always, happily, but I just wanted to get better. I think for someone to just start the process of learning about what they're eating. Again, that GI mapping was a key one for me. I'm a huge advocate for that. Very big proponent for that GI, so that you can treat your gut specifically and not start throwing stuff at a wall. So you've got a specific approach to your personal, deficiencies. And
we might not always start with that, but it's almost never wrong to start with that.
Well, and I was having such bad stomach trouble, rather than putting everything in me. I'd already been down that route when I got to you, and it wasn't helping. So it was very specific. And then I think the hormone, and I think I do not feel like I need to go back on anxiety meds, which is nice. But again, awesome. This has been a process. It's not an overnight thing. I have more steps to go through. But for the first time, like I said, I have energy. I feel like I have control. Even if this pain comes back, which I don't think it's going to. I think it was a fluke thing, and I'm never going to know. I'm going to put that behind me. But if it did, I feel like I have the tools now to control it. So I'm not so fearful. I'm not living in fear. My anxiety isn't set off by it. I did it before. I can do it again. But now I'm just, like I said, I feel like I've de-aged a little bit inside.
I love it.
Yeah, me too, because life requires more than it used to anyway. Just getting out there and facing it every day.
So if you're out there and you want a doc who's just going to see you and write a script to take away your symptoms, I'm not your guy.
No.
Right? I don't want to be your guy. There's plenty of places that you can go to get that. But what we want to do is we want to get to that root cause of your issue so that we can go along with you on that journey and get you well.
I
think wellness is really where it's at. All right, guys. So I hope that was helpful for you. If you are struggling with, maybe fluoroquinolone toxicity or just another kind of complex chronic medical condition, and you're not really getting the answers that you need, you're not getting better with a more traditional approach, maybe it's time to try a functional medicine approach, because we sit back and look at the entire person as a system, and we know that parts of our bodies do not exist in a silo. You don't have the heart part and the lung part and the skin part and the gut part. Everything works in concert. And so that's how we approach this. That's how we approached it for Kerri. And so if that describes you or someone we'd love to help walk out your health and wellness concerns with you. You can give our office a call at 317-300-4091. And we'd be excited to come alongside of you and kind of unpack what's going on. And I just want to tell you that, ultimately, I think that there's really one healer, in the world. It's not me. I think he works through me, but it's not me, it's Jesus. And for my personal experience, that's what really changed things in my life, so that I now feel just excited to take on every day. You know, the days still have problems, there's still challenges, but I'm able to handle them differently because I do life his way, not my way. I proved over and over again that I could make my life a wreck when I did things D. Bonnie's way. And so if that's something that you've not explored, that spiritual side of you, let me encourage you to do that. Go on a journey. We actually have pastoral counselors on staff at our office. We can help you do that, or you and I can grab coffee. But I want you to look into that part of you and just get to know Jesus and maybe figure out what changes when you start doing life his way. Listen, I love you guys. I'll talk to you next time, and God bless you.